I think if you're starting, you just have to have the interest, that's all. You know, if you're remotely interested, you'll have fun gardening. Well, I spent my childhood around my mother's lovely private garden, and I was mad. I was mad about ponies, and all I wanted to do was ride. And my mother would make me weed before I could ever go riding. So I hated weeding, and I didn't really like her garden because I wanted to be riding my pony. But it rubs off because my grandmother used to garden, my mother gardened, and you know, I moved to America when I was about 17, so I wasn't really interested in gardens particularly, but I was lucky enough to be around some lovely gardens, in retrospect. If I could, in another life, I'd like to garden in England because they've got the weather. You know, it's cool, it's mild, it gets plenty of rain, unlike here where it's hotter than Hades and it doesn't rain for 2 months, that sort of thing. But it's not dissimilar. You know, it's not dissimilar. And I think the English gardening is more about design and flowers. You know, they have lots of flower beds, and which is what I've sort of done here. I have roses, I have daylilies, I have this purple flower is a Verbena bonariensis, which just grows everywhere, and I love it. It's airy and it adds a lot. There's hydrangeas blooming. There are, I've got vegetables, I've got zinnias just about to bloom. Mostly daylilies and roses at the moment. When we bought this house, the basic layout of the garden was here, and it was a really nice layout, but there were no beds. So I have spent the last 30 years putting in flower beds and just softening it. You know, it has great bones, it's fabulous. And I've just benefited from the good bones and softened it. Well, as I say to lots of people, like the inhabitants of the house, the shrubs in the garden are aging. Like behind me, these are tea olives, and they're probably the biggest tea olives in South Carolina, but they're ancient. You know, and that's the only worry, is that things like some of the camellias are starting to feel their age. But as far as maintenance, I have a great fella who helps me with mowing and blowing. And yeah, finding help is hard. It's really hard. I'm not here for the brutal heat of July and August and early September, which I'm delighted to say I'm not here for it because it's bloody hot. But the garden survives, but I think its peak is spring. Well, most of them are perennials, which means that they come back year after year. And then I intersperse among the perennials annuals, which are just, as they sound, they just come up every year. And so you have to reseed them or whatever, but the perennials come back every year, like the daylilies, like the roses, like, well, or the salvia. Lots of things around here are perennials. You know, and I try to do many more perennials than annuals. I think if you're starting, you just have to have the interest, that's all. You know, if you're remotely interested, you'll have fun gardening. I was lucky enough to have the basic design, and I think that's what you want, is the basic design. Also, I'm lucky enough to have a walled-in garden. I had the Garden Club of Athens, Georgia, came over to visit Aiken, and I took them to a lot of gardens in this neighborhood, and there are some lovely gardens in this neighborhood. And they were all walled in, and all these young women kept saying, "We have deer, we can't grow anything because the deer eat everything in our garden. And you are so lucky to have a walled-in garden," which I know I am, because, you know, we don't have that problem. My lovely husband would say I host far too much. Always having bloody people over. But mostly every night I walk the dogs down the garden, every single night. And I sit in this chair over there, and I look at the tree and I look at the night sky, and every night I enjoy the garden for myself, you know.